Hello my loves and welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name is Nina and in today's video we're going to do something completely different.
And now for something completely different.
2025 has been absolutely heartbreaking for us 60s and 70s lovers, and it just keeps happening. At this point, I am holding my breath. Just a few days ago, we lost Ace Frehley, the original guitarist from Kiss, and I thought it would be nice to pay tribute to him by talking a little bit about makeup in the glam rock genre, and also to walk through Kiss history with makeup, which is such a fascinating topic. Learning to do anything in makeup is such a skill, and when I think of Kiss and when I see pictures like this, I'm so amazed by their ability to design something like that, to master the craft of doing it over and over again, to walk into stage wearing it every single time, and to also have people waiting for that you with the mask to come out and make a show every single night, even decades later. I mean, when you think about it, the whole preparation behind it, other than the music of course, it sounds like to rock and roll all night and party every day is absolutely exhausting. But also kind of freeing, because when you're on stage you get to represent a character, so you can be tough, otherworldly, even fictional. But when you're not on stage, you can just be you. Nobody knows who you are. When Kiss was forming in the early 1970s, they were seeking for a way to stand out from every other hard rock band in New York. They were seeking for their own personality. At the time, glam rock was super popular. It was basically a movement defined by its visual strikingness, its theatrical style, and its extravagant aesthetic. So you had people wearing really eccentric clothes and wearing different types of makeup so that they could perform a character on stage. And also their concerts were more than just the music. It was about telling people a story, giving a spectacle, a show. It was so much different from just a normal concert. Makeup-wise, you have Alice Cooper, whose iconic look was inspired by an old circus poster of a clown he'd seen and found terrifying, and he later adapted that image into his signature makeup, which gave him permission to go on stage, play the villain, get killed every night, and leave it all there when the show ended. It was a new way to introduce a character onto the stage, and especially in the music scene. Then there's David Bowie, who appeared as Ziggy Stardust, an alien rock star sent to save Earth through music, and later Aladdin Sane, one of the most famous makeup designs in pop culture, which symbolized the duality between stardom and self, between human and alien. There's actually a Mandela effect with the whole different David Bowie personas. People tend to think that Ziggy Stardust is the other one. I didn't know that until I was investigating this. I was included in that group of people, so now you know. But basically, David Bowie created different characters throughout his entire music career. So he was allowed to just create a new album and have a new story and just change it up a little bit, but the character was different and the makeup was different as well. You also have the New York Dolls, who were influenced by drag queens from the New York City underground, by 60s girl groups, and by glam icons like T-Rex. And they introduced the idea of femininity as rebellion. They wanted to wear makeup and look feminine, but just as a statement to let people know that even though they were using makeup, they were super tough and super hard rock, and they could be just like super manly no matter what. So it was more of a messy, punk, defiant act more than anything, and that brought people's attention. So as you can tell, it was really hard to stand out. You had to really search deep to find something outstanding. But then Kiss appeared and pushed the glam rock concept even further. They didn't just wear makeup, they became their makeup. They turned their faces into masks, and that gave them some power and mystery. What I love about all of this is that glam rock makeup was all about transformation, about becoming something larger than life, a myth, a character, an idea, about building an entire story around this character's existence, about wearing certain types of clothes, and putting makeup on was the ritual that separated their true selves from that character. The idea of a ritual connects back to one of the biggest influences behind glam rock, which is kabuki theater. In kabuki, which is a traditional Japanese form of theater, makeup was meant to create identity. Each color and line tells the audience who the character is even before they move. Red stands for heroism and passion, blue stands for ghosts or villains, green I think stands for spirits and monsters, black for strength. There's a lot of controversy online about what means what, so please don't come after me. But the important thing here is that this form of theater was a visual language that would transform the actor into something beyond human. David Bowie was directly inspired by kabuki's theatricality. So the painted faces, the gestures that they use in that theater form, and the fact that they could just walk into the stage and become someone else entirely. Kiss took that same spirit and gave it a little bit of a rock and roll twist. Each Kiss member designed a mask that represented a persona. Paul Stanley was the star child, Gene Simmons was the demon, Peter Criss was the catman, and Ace Frehley was the spaceman. They instantly became unforgettable. The makeup gave them a presence, a visual signature. And they were really smart about it. They recognized that the energy of their live performances was what made them truly exciting as a band. The lights, the smoke, the chaos, the 4 characters on stage performing, the whole show was really exciting for people and made them just be on the edge of themselves. So when it came time to record their 4th album after 3 other albums that weren't necessarily super successful, they decided to incorporate a little bit of that live energy in the studio. And that's when they understood it wasn't about the songs, and it wasn't even about the makeup. It was about the experience of seeing those 4 characters perform live and to have people feel what it's like to be at a Kiss concert even if you're not there in person. They understood that the whole show that involved those 4 characters was a lot bigger than just listening to them. You had to hear also the people screaming because there was a demon on stage and there was a guy with a guitar that would just get smoke out of that, you know? It was about the spectacle, the show, about the theatricality of it. Kiss hit their peak in the mid-1970s and their shows became legendary. They involved pyrotechnics, flying guitars, blood, and of course the makeup. What's really interesting about them was that backstage they weren't just rock and roll. Kiss was basically pure contrast between Paul Stanley and Gene Simmons and Peter Criss and Ace Frehley. 2 were abstemious, the other 2 were heavy drinkers, 2 were business-minded artists, the other 2 were just living their lives and enjoying themselves. 2 were about creating a brand and figuring out ideas around that and commercializing absolutely everything, and the other 2 were about just spending the money and living life as it comes. So they were basically set to have problems eventually. In the early 1980s, tensions and personal struggles led to departures. So Peter Criss was the first to leave the band, and he was soon replaced by Eric Carr and also by a new makeup design, which was the Fox. Eric Carr actually designed another makeup before this. I think it was the Hulk or something like that. And it is absolutely terrifying. I'm so glad that they didn't go with that one because it wouldn't work. But after Peter Criss left, the band saw a significant decline in album sales and concert attendance. Suddenly, one of the most iconic characters was missing, and that change, plus some controversial music decisions and the extreme commercialization of their brand, failed to resonate with many of their die-hard fans. Then Ace Frehley left too and was replaced by Vinnie Vincent, and of course also by a new makeup design. The band really tried to experiment with new designs, trying to introduce new and fresh identities, but audiences didn't connect with these new characters the same way as the other two. Still, the decline was inevitable, and also people started wondering who were those four people under the mask. They started sneaking into places, trying to take pictures of them without the makeup on, so eventually they decided to do a bold move, removing their makeup.
The biggest question was, who was really behind the makeup, and what did the band really look like? Well, in just a minute, you're going to meet the members of KISS face-to-face, exclusively here on MTV.
For some fans, it was shocking. The band wasn't just characters anymore. They were just regular people. And even though they were still super talented musicians, some of the mystique and the theatrical power of the original personas was lost. On 1995, the KISS lineup was invited to perform at the MTV Unplugged, and Paul Stanley and Gene Simmons decided to invite Peter Criss and Ace Frehley to perform with them on stage as well. And the reaction of the audience was so positive that that experience prompted the band for an official reunion in 1996. They weren't all just for performing together the music, but also to restore their iconic characters and to wear those clothes and the makeup again. And that's when it clicked. The magic was about the mythology behind those four characters together, the ones that had started it all and that brought something particular into the mix that made people love them so much and, you know, root for them during all those years. So as you can probably tell by the whole story, Peter and Ace eventually left the band again, and in this opportunity they did sell the rights to their makeup designs, which is why we see KISS performing nowadays with their the original makeup designs that Peter had created for the Catman and Ace for the Spaceman. And apparently, according to the internet, they got a really low price for that. They didn't know how valuable those could be. They still apparently get some money from the merchandise, but you know, we don't know really that much about it. But the important thing here is that there are new performers, so they left the band, and to this day people still love KISS and they see those masks and those four characters and it still works. It's like a theater show where everything gets repeated every single time throughout people's lives and it keeps working. So there's something really nice about that. They can take it upon themselves that they created something that was actually larger than life. That is completely unforgettable. After hearing of Ace's passing, I thought it would be nice to remember this story and to talk about makeup and how important it is in building yourself as a persona. I am not a fan of masking yourself to this degree. This story shows how tricky of a decision that is, but interesting nonetheless. And also, Halloween is just around the corner, and I know some people like to dress up as KISS characters, so if you like Ace's makeup the most, maybe it is nice to dress up like him and pay him a tribute through your Halloween costume and to his wonderful makeup design, which is my favorite from them all. That was everything for today. I hope you enjoyed this video. I know it was completely different from our usual programming sessions. But Teenage Nina had a wild Kiss face, so I thought it would be nice to pay Ace Frehley a tribute. Always remember to rock and roll all night and party every day. See you on the next one. Bye!
But they sure got some cuties incorrect.